Welcome back to the Journalistic Revolution. This is part 2 of the interview with Mike Troy. We are discussing wars, proper wars, justified wars, and other subjects. And here you go. Well, speaking of liberal and conservative issues, wars. Do you believe that we are currently involved in any justified wars?
As with the amount that our current dollar holds, 0.
All right. I mean, do you believe there are justified wars? I mean, what would let's define what a justified war would be for, say, someone like you.
In that case, let's go back in history to the last time we had a justified and properly declared war would be World War II. That is the last time that we were attacked. We did something very, very, very extreme and draconian, actually identified the enemy. We didn't have some monarch, declaring war, since, that evil Article 1, Section 8 declares only Congress can. And we went over there, we fought, we won a couple of years, and we came home. I mean, and that was it. We haven't had a properly declared war since World War II. And I think that would be an example, a tangible, actual example that exists that we can go off of. Terrorism is a tactic. It isn't a people. It isn't a country. It isn't a religion. And as long as people have a pulse, there will be terrorism. You can't defeat it. And one of the things that I thoroughly disagreed with when I first came in the Army was that Rumsfeld, one of the previous SecDefs, was he wanted to inherently transform the whole Army into a special operations unit. And one of the 4 truths of special operations, I have no spec ops backgrounds, but you can't mass produce special operations troops. And that's one of the reasons why he pulled out formerly retired General Peter Schoonmaker out of retirement, because Schoonmaker was a previous Delta commander, that doesn't physically exist. And to have a former Delta commander as the chief of staff, they try to turn the whole Army into a spec ops unit to try to defeat this war on terror, because the problem with that, you can't defeat unconventional warfare by using of conventional methods. You also can't mass produce these troops. So I think the GWOT was just a completely a cop out, because Bush was under peer pressure, or under pressure to have some sort of response to 9/11. So his response to 9/11 was going after the country that had absolutely nothing to do with 9/11 and try.
Would you say that the war on terror you can actually kind of just put it side by side with the war on drugs to prove the point of how wasteful and how stupid it is to put a war on something to that doesn't really have any kind of tangible. The war on drugs has created more crime. We know that. It's created that don't touch the wet paint theory, where it's in the forefront of your mind, so you inherently want to touch it. That's your first response to a warning. Would you say that war on terror, that it's just something that will never go away and something that you can never win, to the point where it's almost obsolete to even try it?
Well, I mean, of course. And I think the war on drugs and the war on terror, their common element is war, which is something that our nation and the people that we have, I guess, elected to represent us, they're addicted to. I mean, warfare to a politician is kind of like, a crackhead getting their fix. They're never going to get over it. I mean, and also, there's no profit in peace.
No.
And I think, once you take the money out of politics and take the lobbyists and the military-industrial complex out of the game, then there's also going to be no profit for war, because most of us have been at war our entire life.
Well, you bring up a good point, because there's been billions and billions of dollars spent on the war on drugs, but yet it just gets worse and worse and worse. It doesn't go away. It's an unwinnable war. So wouldn't it seem more feasible to put that money towards another resource, or lower taxes, for that matter, get rid of taxes altogether, just not collect it in general for something that has no foreseeable end?
Well, I mean, there's no tangible result. I mean, they already tried the war on drugs, back in the 20s. I mean, some people think just automatically equivalate prohibition with alcohol, but no, prohibition just means trying to stop something.
Hmm.
That's prohibited. Well, yeah, I mean, the war on alcohol failed, and I just think I look at the war on drugs as even deeper. Because I have arguments with drug war advocates all the time, and the question that I stump them on, or kind of almost bring out their contradiction, is the question, who owns your body? And they're like, well, I do. I'm like, so you are able to put in your body or use your body any way you see fit without repercussions from the law? Well, no. I'm like, well, then you don't really own your body. I guess you can partially own it, say you own your body. Like, no, I own my body. I do with it what I want. I'm like, except for that which the government has deemed illegal beyond the steps of the boundaries or their authority, whatever. And they're like, oh well, and then they bring out the obligatory response. Well, we have to have laws. We can't be a lawless society. I'm like, really? That's your argument? That's the route you're going to take? I believe in laws. I just believe in I kind of go off the common sense mentality of no victim, no crime or nullification. If there's no victim, then like for instance, I have a fundamental flaw with my argument here, but I'm against speed limits. Granted, driving isn't a right; it's a privilege. When you sign your license, you inherently agree to the rules of the road. However, if I get pulled over for speeding, you know, who's the victim in that scenario? I have been cited. I have points on my license, and if I do it too much, I get my license revoked. Granted, yes, there's a fundamental flaw with that because, like I said, driving is not a right. But like with drugs, if the only victim is me, then I haven't exactly harmed anyone, and that's, I guess, one of the main areas that I'm focusing on for the book that I'm currently writing, or I guess on standby right now. It's to what extent preventive laws in a free society, which pretty much addresses residual effects that are the actual crime and the laws that try to prevent the actions that lead to residual effects.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, because one of the main arguments I hear when you tell someone, well, if it doesn't hurt anybody else, who's the victim, victimless crime, is I'll hear people say something along the lines of, well, what happens when that heroin addict or crackhead robs someone's house? And my response to that has always been, well, then you arrest him for stealing and breaking and entering. You know?
And I mean, to add on to that, I mean, I tell people all the time, we can play the endless what if scenario until the cows come home, which is ironic because I've never been on the farm. But it just we can play what if this happens, what if that happens, what if this happens, what if that happens. That's why I name the book to what extent. It's like where do you draw the line? Like if you smoke crack or do any of these other illegal drugs that the government hasn't deemed safe for your use, and then you go out and do something else, then where is the actual crime? The crime is what you did, not what led you to do it. Because I mean, the same can be said for drunk driving. You know, Drunk driving kills people all the time, but are we gonna ban cars? Are we gonna try to ban alcohol again? Because it did so well the first time. But no, you're going to penalize the actual crime of someone getting into an accident, therefore infringing upon someone else's rights. It's once again, it's an ugly form of collectivism, trying to blanket and put everything under the same umbrella. That is not the case. Like prostitution, I think prostitution should be fully legalized
I
because
agree.
that's once again the Christian right, or the religious right, or whatever the whole right, trying to bring legislation into morality. Not everyone abides by the same, spiritual laws or what have you. I think a prostitute, I think she's an entrepreneur. If she wants to sell her body, once again, it goes back to the question: who owns your body?
Well, let me do a little segue here. So, if drugs were legal, a crackhead could possibly break into somebody's house and steal something, correct?
Possibly,
Okay, if drugs were illegal, a crackhead could possibly break into somebody's house and steal something, correct?
of course.
So, if you arrest a crackhead for being a crackhead and he hasn't committed any crime, who ultimately pays other than him going to jail? Taxpayers.
Exactly. We are, like I said, we have become ironically, a free society addicted to preventive laws to stop actions causing residual effects. And the more laws we try to pass to control behavior, the more freedom we lose. Which is why, when I was still in the service, when people thank me for defending their freedom, I just had to laugh. Well, of course, after I woke up and took the red pill, I'm like, I almost wanted to say, and which of those freedoms do you currently still have that you didn't have as 2000? Because we have lost more freedom since 2001 than we have either gained or maintained. It's like, well, we no longer have the Fourth Amendment thanks to Bush and Obama's Patriot Act. We can no longer protest around an individual under Secret Service protection due to Obama's HR 347. But the thing is that as long as people only get their news from, the TV, they're not going to hear this.
And that was part 2 of Mike Troy's interview. Make sure you stay tuned for part 3. So I'm saying, peace outside,